Right, hey guys, hi, yeah, there, I see you waving there. This is actually the first fly tying video I've ever done, so, and as you guys can see there, I'm actually tying it on a chartreuse 1/16 ounce jig head. And like I said, this is the first tying video I've ever done, so don't crucify me for video quality. I'm still learning how to get everything set up. First things first, I actually have some chartreuse. I went with white, our chartreuse, some Chanel. Sorry guys, I actually picked that up in a fly shop. I've got some chartreuse marabou. And on the next one coming up, I've actually got some hollow strips. Normally you'd use flashabou, but I didn't have any flashabou, so I sort of just substituted it with the hollow strips. And now right there, what's he pulling out there? That is some wire. I don't really remember exactly what grade wire it is. It's just sort of a finer wire there. And then I've got my thread. Now starting off, we're actually just going to go ahead and wind that thread onto the jig hook. And usually when I wind it on there, I like to wind it on a little bit and then sort of cut that tail end off. Now, as you guys will notice later on, I committed a cardinal sin and used my good scissors to clip wire, but I do not remember where my wire scissors went to. Now, this next part here is going to be a little bit long because I'm actually winding the thread onto the hook, trying to actually get a really good base going on. In retrospect, I probably should have used a thicker thread for this. However, we managed to make it work here. Now, if you guys are wondering what I'm doing here, I'm actually trying to build up a nice little base layer of thread to get it a little bit easier, like even with that head there. If you guys are wondering why the color choices that I chose, is it's actually chartreuse and white, which are really good ones, are really good colors for my area. And actually, the chartreuse is one of the pan fishermen, what's it called? One of the pan fishing commandments right next to thou shalt use live bait is actually thou shalt use something chartreuse. Believe it or not, there's actually an article floating around the website about that, and I read that there, and it's completely true. The thing about it is there's no real scientific data to back it up. It just seems to be chartreuse works across the board. And as you guys can see here, I'm sort of winding it on there, and I've gotten that pretty well done to wherever that needs to be. And the marabou, yeah, there's, when you pull it out, you guys will see here in a second. Yep, wait for it. Yeah, that stuff's hard to work with sometimes, so it was kind of difficult for me to get it out of the package. But once I got some, you'll see here. I'll explain it here in a second. There we go. Just plucks right out there. Alright, and I'm grabbing my scissors, and here pretty soon. I do apologize about the quality of my vise. I've had it for a long time, and watch right here. That is actually a cardinal sin. You don't want to cut there. Because if you do, it just sort of lops everything off, and it looks sort of really bad. And you don't really want to pull it from that side. What you want to do is you actually want to flip the marabou over and go from the top down. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to pull the marabou and fold it, and that'll actually give you those nice tails. Now, some people like to have a really big tail on their jigs, their flies, and stuff like that. I really don't. I prefer to have a little bit of a smaller tail on mine because, you know, if a fish short strikes your lure or something like that, they're actually getting the lure and not just tail. I mean, you know, because we all love to get tail sometime. But for what I'm doing here is I'm actually measuring the length of tail that I need, and then once we get that, then we can actually take our scissors and clip the back, or the front side or the back side. The part that we're not using as the tail, we can clip that off. And wait, watch. There we go. There we go. There we go. We got the thumbs up. So there he goes, and he actually clips it off there. That's me, by the way, if you guys haven't noticed. Yeah, it's actually my first fly tying video, as I stated before. Now, for the marabou, I use the pinch method, where you just pinch the string, pull it down, pull it around, pinch the string again, and then after that, I use that, my thread to sort of wipe it all down. And it's pretty good. Again, guys, I apologize about the video quality there. I'm still learning all the basics for it. Now, the cool thing about this is once you actually start putting the material on, the actual body of the jig seems to catch up pretty quickly. Now, if you guys are wondering why I keep scrolling the thimble down, it's because my threader there is actually extremely tight, and I actually broke the thread the first time around and had to start the video all over again. So probably didn't want to have to do that again. Now, how I'm tying this jig here is I'm actually tying it like you do a woolly booger. If you guys don't know what that is, you've got YouTube to look it up. And I'll probably, almost definitely be tying one in a later video, because it's a very, very good fly to tie, and it's a very basic fly to tie as well. So, but first things first, I take my chenille, and I actually had forgotten I had tied up some San Juan worms, and I tied it into a knot to put it all in there. But anyways, how we're putting this together is we're actually tying all of the materials that we're going to wrap around the hook into the back of the fly first, and then we work forward. But first, I actually get rid of the chenille for the time being, and I take out my hollow strips. Normally, you would use Flashabou for something like this, but I don't really have any Flashabou yet, so I just substituted for the hollow strip. It just adds a little bit more flash to the fly. When it comes to crappie and panfish, they're real sight feeders, so if you have a little bit of some flash to the fly, it helps out really there. And here I had actually forgotten how to put on Flashabou and hollow strips and stuff like that for a tail, so I actually just kind of say screw it and then just sort of wing it from there. And so far it works pretty well. It does pretty good, I think, anyways. I mean, the finished fly looked, or the finished jig looked really good. If you've never tied any flies before, or you spend a lot of money on jigs, this is a good way to go, because I think everything all together would probably run me about $15-$20, and you figure $15-$20 worth of jigs, you could probably double that based just off of fly tying, or tying them up yourself. And as you guys can see here, I'm actually tying those in, so yeah, it worked pretty good. And then once I get those tied in, I'll actually pull back the bits at the front of the jig, and I'll actually clip those off. And who would have thought that a lamp on a jig would throw the camera into such disarray and then throw the whole scene off? So I do apologize about that, guys. It was either my room was going to be too dark or it was going to be too bright, and I figured it'd probably be best just to go with too bright. So that way you guys at least have a chance of watching something. And there's a little finger flourish there for you guys. And as you guys can see here, I'm tying the wire in. I'll explain why I have the wire in there once I actually wrap that in. You don't really need it, but I like to have it there, sort of just in case thing. If you tie it right, you actually don't even notice the wire on the fly, because it actually sinks down into the chenille, and it does pretty good. And then for the wire, I just sort of tied the wire in for the length of the hook. As you guys can see there, I gave you a little finger notice there to show that. And then we just sort of wipe it in. Yeah, we wipe the wire on the hook, guys. We tie that wire in there. And as you guys can see here, the actual body of the jig is sort of balanced out there. And so that's really, really good. You guys have to keep in mind, if you want to tie jigs, don't worry so much about how your thread looks on the body at the start, because your body's going to bulk up a lot more once you actually start getting, you know, your materials and stuff like that on there. And as you guys can see here, I'm actually tying in my chenille. I actually had to retie my chenille on there because I actually didn't tie it far enough back, and when I went to start wrapping it, it left a giant gap between my marabou and the chenille. So that is one thing you guys will have to keep in mind, is that the as you guys can see here, tap tap, and there's a giant gap between the chenille and the marabou, and I really didn't want to have to go wrap it back a little bit, then start wrapping it forward, because that would sort of just throw it off. And as you guys can see here, I'm actually bringing my thread back to sort of get it back more towards where the marabou ends and where my chenille needs to start. And this is actually going to be the body of the fly. The body of the fly. I actually have a rather thicker chenille instead of one of the more finer ones. I actually picked this up in a fly shop in Branson, Missouri, from some guides that we used to tie Stan Wanworms with, and it works pretty good. Now, the body with my chenille on my jigs, I usually want to keep that a little bit longer. Since I have a really small marabou body, for me, it's just sort of a way of balancing everything out. And that just seems to work for me there. As you guys can see here, yeah, this is actually where the light sort of started to suck, because it hit that white body with a jig head, and it sort of made it look like I was tying a jig from the heavens. It really did. Oh, and then as you guys can see here, I'm messing with the light, trying to get at it to work better, and so you guys can kind of see it better here, so that's a good thing. Still, the quality sucks, and I do apologize about that, guys. I'll figure everything out as I sort of go along. After a few wraps, you know, with the thread going back and forth, I get that tied in there, and then that's able to be clipped off. There is going to be a little bit of a tip left of the marabou, but just the tip, guys. Just the tip. But no, you can usually just take a few wraps with your thread. All right, so here's the wire. I like to wrap the wire into it, more towards the end of it, just because it gives you that more strength to the fly. If you get in and you start hitting them pretty hard, you know, fish after fish after fish, your jig or your fly is going to fall apart if you don't strengthen everything up. So that's the reason why I include that wire there. You don't have to have it, like I said, but if you want to add some more strength to your jig or your fly, some wire is pretty good. Unless you're tying a dry fly, in which case you really don't want to add, you know, more weight to it than it has to. Now right there, I actually use my good scissors to clip the wire. You really don't want to do that because it destroys the scissors, but like I said, I sort of lost my fly tying, or my wire scissors, so I had to use those. That's actually a whip finisher. We're getting pretty close to finishing the fly here. Once you give it 2 or 3 wraps with a whip finisher, you can pretty much just clip your thread right there, or you can, I don't recommend breaking it off, but you can cut it off or you can snip it off, and you're done with the thread there. Now the next one's pretty cool. The next step is we actually have a form of head cement, which is a type of glue that we have in this little black little squeezy bottle, and we actually have a blue light. It costs a little bit more than head cement does, however, it dries a lot stronger. And since this is actually one of the first jigs I tied on video, I wanted it nice and strong. As you guys can see here, I'm just giving it a nice little coat around the head. Yeah, coat around the head, guys. Baby. Alright, and then we're hitting it with the blue light here, and what happens is this blue light actually causes that to dry really, really hard and really quickly too. I just don't recommend, aiming that in your eyes because it really, really sucks. And as you guys can see here, we're finishing up the jig here. There we go. Tap it. There's the thumbs up. And we go ahead and pull it through here. And let's see if the camera focused. I think it did. Yeah, there we go. A nice sort of white and chartreuse fly. And one last final. And there we go, guys. All right. If you liked it, hit the like button. And go ahead and cue that closer. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like button, and don't forget to leave a comment down below. Also, if you guys want to check out the other things, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, all of that's going to be in the description below, so don't forget to check that out. Also, if you guys do want to subscribe, don't forget to click that subscribe button. But if you guys don't want to, I'm not going to hold your arm behind the back. So, thanks for tuning in, guys, and I will leave that light on for you. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.